Good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure being here and to be able to address such a wonderful gathering. I've been leading the volunteering program for my company for the past 7 years. And in these years, our volunteers have clocked more than 1 million volunteering hours. If you ask me who are the people who drive this program, it's young people like most of you in the audience. As such, we are an IT company and the average age of our employees is 26 years. But the average age of our volunteers is much less than that. And they drive, it always amazes me the passion with which they have been driving this program. You know, I know some people who work in night shifts and go straight to school to teach. They don't even wait to catch up on their sleep. There are people who go to their hometown for the weekend but come back on a Sunday morning so that they can volunteer. So today I'm going to talk to you or share with you some of the defining stories of our volunteering experience. And through these stories, I want to answer some of the most frequently asked questions about volunteering. So let me begin with the first question. So why do we volunteer? So what motivates people to volunteer? So whenever people ask me this question, I remember Divya. Our volunteers met Divya when she was in Tirukkalikundram, a small town near Chennai. She had just finished her 12th standard. She didn't have her parents. She was living with her aged grandfather, who was also not well enough to earn. So they were dependent on their neighbors even for their daily meals. But in spite of the circumstances she lived in, she had scored 100% in 3 subjects in her 10th standard, and she had scored more than 97% in her 12th standard. Although she got admission in some of the best government engineering colleges, she could not leave her grandfather who was dependent on her and go away. That was when our volunteers met her. They pooled in their money and got her admission in an engineering college close to her hometown. And they also helped her get an education loan. You know what is the first thing Divya did as soon as she got her loan sanctioned? She returned the money which the volunteers paid for her tuition. And then in the passing, one of the volunteers told her, just like we helped you when you finish your engineering, you should help more people. But she did not wait to finish engineering. She went back home and started taking free tuitions for children in her neighborhood. Today, Divya is working in TCS. And can you tell me what can be more gratifying than helping people like Divya? And our volunteers come across children like this every day, who are the tough circumstances in which they live in doesn't seem to have dampened their spirit. They are intelligent and willing to fight against massive odds to succeed. And getting to help such people is the most gratifying experience of volunteering. So the second question, another frequently asked question. Can you make a difference just by volunteering? Is your time alone enough? Don't you need a lot of money? Don't you need a lot of resources to make a difference? Not always. You know, this is one of the first schools our volunteers started working with was the Torepakam Higher Secondary School on OMR. You might have passed it when you came here. It's bang in the middle of IT corridor. And when we visited the school, they had computers, many computers lying in a room. These computers were donated by pretty much every IT company on the corridor. But they were just lying in a room gathering dust. Nobody even knew how to switch on and use it. So we started working with the school. We set up a lab. And every week our volunteers used to go and teach computer science and English for the 12th standard students. And in the board exam, all the students passed these 2 subjects. Whereas the overall pass percentage was only 61%, every 100% pass in these 2 subjects. And you know, that year we did a lot of, finance intensive work. Like we built libraries, we set up labs, we renovated classrooms, we set up RO plants. But none of these expensive projects had as much impact as this volunteering activity which our volunteers did. So these are the homeless children that our volunteers work with. They've been working with these children for past 4 years. They actually go to Broadway, sit in the pavements and teach these children. Last year, Times of India conducted a competition on the occasion of 375th anniversary of Madras. So they called it the Dream Madras Contest and invited a lot of schools to participate in the competition. More than 80 schools participated, many of them leading private schools in the city. And our homeless children competed against these schools and won the first place. See, these are the cycles which they won in the competition, the first cycle of their life. And you know what was interesting for me? While all the other children were accompanied by their parents and teachers, our volunteers applied leave and accompanied them for this event. And when they won their competition, they were jumping with joy, just like any parent would. So how much effort does it take to make a real difference? Does it involve like you have to give up your job and work full time in order to make a real difference? If there is something I've learned in my 7 years of volunteering journey, it's this. Even a small act of kindness never goes wasted. See, we run this campaign called the Little Gifts campaign. We collect wishes from all the children that we work with and we post it on our intranet. And anybody interested in fulfilling those wishes can buy those gifts and give it for the children. So this is such a simple, ordinary campaign, and I learned so many life lessons just by running this campaign. There was this volunteer who wrote to me saying her brother, her 23-year-old brother, had died the previous year. His name was Divakar, and when she saw this campaign, she searched for a child's name with the same name. She could find one child with the same name, and when she bought the gift for him, it felt like she was gifting her brother again. Even the gifts these children asked for was like an eye-opening experience. There were many children who asked for a box of crayons. And you wouldn't think that a box of crayons is an aspirational thing for a child. But you know, it was like a really very moving to see those wishes. There was a child who asked for a sari for his mother, not for a gift for himself. But by far my most memorable story of this Little Gifts campaign is Satish's story. The boy you see over there, his name is Satish, and he wished for a chessboard. And a volunteer, Vasantan, bought him his first chessboard. And he was so fascinated by the game that he started playing every day with his brother. Then a few weeks later, another group of volunteers decided to conduct an inter-school chess competition for all the schools that we work with. So they picked the brightest children from every school and trained them for 12 weeks. And they conducted a competition for them. Satish won every game he played and emerged the champion. And today he plays at district levels. I don't know, I'm sure when Vasantan gifted Satish his chessboard, he wouldn't have realized he was gifting him his dream. And that's the power of small acts of kindness. This is a village called Malayamman Durgam. It's a little away from Coimbatore and it does not have access to electricity. The only way to reach this village is you'll have to trek 5 hours. There's no other transportation. So our volunteers reached this village late one evening after a 5-hour trek, and they distributed solar lamps for everybody in the village. Then a little girl told our volunteer that this was the first time she's seen her mother's face after dark. That is, you would never realize this unless you live in a circumstance where you have no access to electricity. Moving on to now the next question. How far is too far for volunteers? Is there things which volunteer would not do? I'm yet to come across that limit. You know, this is a children's ward in a government hospital where our volunteers used to visit every fortnight. They did this project a couple of years back. They used to clean the ward themselves with their own hands, including the toilet. And then they used to conduct sessions for the children in the ward. Many of these children are, chronically ill, terminally ill, months together in the hospital. So they don't get to go to school. So they conduct art and craft session for them. They even teach them maths and English. Sometimes the parents join in on the fun. So you can see that picture with all of them participating in the session. So this is one of our volunteers who spent one day with this child doing coloring. And the next fortnight when he went to visit, the child had died, the child had passed away. And all the staff told this guy, Sulaiman, his name is, that this was the happiest day she had before she died. What can you learn from volunteers? I'm sure with all the stories I've told you, there is a lot you can learn, but let me share with you 2 of the most important lessons I learned from our volunteers. The power of doing small things with great love. Like Mother Teresa says, doing small things with great love. The power of it you can discover when you see some of these volunteers. This is a village near Pune called Velle. It's situated in Western Ghats, so it's a very rough terrain, and it caters to children in 12 kilometers radius. One school caters to children in a 12-kilometer radius. And our volunteers used to volunteer in the school. And what they found is girls drop out after 7th standard because many children have to walk through wilderness in a very lonely area and then reach the school. So after 7th standard, you will find that there are very few girls in the class. So what they did is they went to every village in the vicinity and asked the children, tried to motivate the parents to send their girls to school. But parents had genuine concerns. So they retraced the path these children took and they came up with an idea. They hired a van to pick up the girls from their homes and get them to school and drop them back to their home. This was just a simple, anybody would have thought of this idea, but what a dramatic difference it made, Like the previous year, there were 7 girls studying in 8th standard, and the year the van started plying, we had 29 girls studying in 8th standard. And you know what the problem was when these girls drop out after 7th standard, they were getting married. Their parents were getting them married off at 13 and 14. So now we'd like to think these are 29 child marriages that we prevented. What can you learn from volunteers? What is the other thing you can learn from volunteers? The power of empathy. See, we work with a juvenile home in Coimbatore. Our volunteers visit that home every day. They teach the children yoga and art and craft. These are some of the art and craft created by the children of the home. And then they keep track of when the child gets released from home. And when the parents come to take the child, they kind of reintroduce the child to the parent. They display all the arts and crafts that the child has created and tell their parent what he has learned, how creative he is. And very often it's a very emotional moment for both the parent and the child because that's the first time the child has received any appreciation in his life. And this is Ullagaram School in Chennai, a primary school which our volunteers work with. And what they found is after 5th standard, it's a primary school, right? After 5th standard, they have to enroll in a middle school or a high school. But many children were dropping out. So they decided to conduct a graduation ceremony for the school passing out children, the 5th standard student. So they decked them up in graduation gowns, and then they had a huge graduation ceremony. They invited the parents, they had a chief guest, and when each child came up to get her graduation certificate, there was a personalized slide displayed about the child, on what they achieved in that year, how much they have learned, what are their talents, what are the various extracurricular activities they have participated in. And after the event, most of the parents came up to our volunteers and said they didn't realize that their child was so talented, and they promised to continue their child's education. Every child is now enrolled in a middle school. That is the power of empathy. So what do volunteers learn from their experience? It's not a one-way street, like you do something like this, it's not like you are only teaching, you are learning a lot. So let me share with you a couple of examples. This is Vicky. He and his friends did a project which involved teaching every day in a primary school. So he was teaching this 5th standard children who were very naughty. It was so hard to control. They were a boisterous, noisy group of children. So one day on his way to school, he met with an accident. It was a minor accident. He had few bruises from it. So he just dusted himself up and went to class because he didn't want to disappoint the children. But the children somehow realized that he was not all right. He was in pain. So this entire group of noisy, boisterous 10-year-olds sat in pin-drop silence and listened to him throughout the class. So he said this was his best class he had taken in his whole volunteering experience. And this is like a group of volunteers were distributing blankets late in the night for homeless people. So in the railway station, one of the volunteers found a mother and a child, lying down in the platform. So he gave her this blanket. And he was recounting his experience to me. He said, she was so delighted. She said, "You are my son, I bless you. I've been suffering with these mosquitoes. I've been beating myself, literally hurting myself, trying to swat these mosquitoes. God bless you. This means so much to me." And he was so taken aback because he didn't realize that something as simple as a blanket could delight somebody so much. So what does volunteering do to you? You cannot but be changed by the volunteering experience. See, every year we conduct an inter-school competition in every city that we operate for the schools that we work with. So I was in Pune for this inter-school competition, and it's a fiercely competed competition because we give a championship trophy and prize money for the best school. So volunteers spend months training the children and preparing them for this competition. So I was on the stage giving away the prizes and MC was announcing the winners. So the winners of the group dance was announced and the group of children were jumping with joy and they came up to the stage and then MC realized that she had made the wrong announcement. She had called the wrong school to the stage. So she apologized to them and sent them back. But you know, they were so disappointed, their face fell, the whole auditorium became silent. And then the winning team came up on the stage. So they were accompanied by the volunteer who had trained them for over a month. You know, she came up on the stage and she called the other team who had just gone back. She called them on the stage and she said, let us take this prize together. Let us share this prize. And when both the teams held up the trophy, it was such a beautiful moment. What could have been the lowest point of the event transformed into something very memorable. So that's what volunteering does to you. It always keeps you human. So I would like to end with my favorite story. I've listened to thousands and hundreds of stories from the volunteers in the 7 years, but my favorite story, the story of Ajit. Ajit lives in the forests of Topslip along with his parents. His father is an elephant mahout. He came to participate in our Coimbatore inter-school competition. That was his first time in the city, and he drew this bird which lives in his forest, the great Indian hornbill. I don't know how many of you would have even known about this bird, but it's a very beautiful forest bird. And he won the second place for his painting. And he told our volunteers about his relationship with this bird. You know, hornbill has a very unique nesting habit. When the egg is ready to hatch, the mother bird seals herself in a nest. She and the baby bird cannot come out of the nest. So what the father bird does is it makes a small hole in the nest and feeds the family through that hole. So it goes searching for food in the forest and feeds the family through the hole. But because of lot of human activity like deforestation and like these birds get captured or they get frightened away. So when that happens, there is nobody to feed the mother bird and the chick. And often these birds die of starvation inside the nest. And what Ajit does is he keeps track of the birds in his forest. He keeps track of the nests in his forest and makes sure that the birds are safe. Often we think of volunteering as a very linear process. Here are a group of people who are willing to give their time and effort, and so many other people benefit from that volunteering. But it's not so. My experience with all the stories that I've heard through volunteering is that it is a very synergetic process. Everybody involved is enriched by the experience. It's really hard to say who has received more. Thank you.